Only on Free TV.
Good morning. I'm George Dean, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Urban League, a leading provider of human services in the Valley, and you are watching Urban Connections. For those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, you need to know that Urban Connections came about through an agreement that the Greater Phoenix Urban League and Channel 3 had, that we would bring you a program at least once each month to talk about various issues, situations, concerns, conditions, and so forth that are taking place not only here locally, but statewide and indeed nationwide. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about children. It's one of my favorite topics, of course. And you know, we say in the Urban League a long time ago that our children equal our destiny. So we got to make sure that we want our destiny to be better than what it is today. That means that we got to have children that are going to be leaders, that's going to be developed, that's going to be productive and mindful citizens and so forth. So we're going to discuss children and the state of Black Arizona. We got a lot of things to talk about today, so stay tuned. We'll be back.
Everyone at CTCA all had the same goal in mind, is to get me in here, get treatment as soon as possible, and to be successful.
I had a team of people looking out for what was best for me, and we put together a treatment plan immediately.
CTCA has figured out how to treat a cancer patient.
We talked about the options before we developed the plan.
These were people who were experts in their field, and for us, that was the best choice.
Learn more at cancercenter.com/Phoenix.
Here at Window World, we provide the best quality windows and doors for the lowest price. You see, Window World windows are made with double the UV protection on most other vinyl windows. Plus, we exclusively offer Solar Zone Sun Shield glass with a 0.14 SHGC rating. That's Window Nerd Talk for the highest UV protection and heat-resistant glass available.
I couldn't believe it. I'd stay in my room, and it was so hot in there. Now that that's in there, it's nice. It is so cool to the touch.
Window World gave us the top value and top quality for our money, and the service has been first class.
Get 7 large premium sliding windows, all with Solar Zone Sunshield glass, installed, tax included, for one complete low price of only $37.25. Plus, save an extra $100 off new patio doors, too. Call today at 602-753-0454.
Window World.
Simply the best.
For definitely less.
Cox Business and BNC National Bank are proud to announce the winner of the 2019 Small Business Boost Contest, Sibley's West. Sibley's West is a gift shop like no other, featuring only products made in Arizona. Art, books, children's gifts, clothing, gift baskets, and more. It's the best of Arizona right in downtown Chandler. Sibley's West will receive $5,000 in cash and an Arizona's Family free TV advertising schedule sponsored by Cox Business and BNC National Bank. Thank you to all who entered and voted.
Welcome back. George Dean, President and CEO of Greater Phoenix Urban League, a leading provider of human services in the Valley. You're watching Urban Connections, and I'm very pleased to have as my guest this morning Miss Teniqua Broughton, the Executive Director of an organization called the State of Black Arizona.
Good morning, Mr. Dean.
So let me say welcome, Ms. Broughton, to Urban Connections. And why don't we just start off by tell us a little bit about the state of Black Arizona. How long you been, when did it start, how did it get started, how long you been with the organization, and so forth?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'll start with what you know, which is the state of, and I like to say the state of models really came out of the Urban League movement. And there are a handful of state of cities across the country like Chicago, Rochester, and I'm thinking about one in California, Sacramento. And there, to my knowledge, are two state of organizations, Oregon and Arizona, and we serve as a nonprofit. So I've been with the organization about 5.5 years, and I have helped the organization transition from a advisory committee, which which started back in 2009, to now being a governing board, where we received our 501c3 in 2017. Okay. So our mission really is to create a platform to synthesize data, demographics, and research around issues and concerns as it relates to African Americans in Arizona. We really want leaders to truly look at that data and create action around how we can have some improvements for all Arizonans around those issues. And so we execute our mission through reports where we do snapshots around those issues and concerns, publications which are a little bit more lengthier around those issues and concerns that tell a story about what's going on in Arizona. And then the third thing is our leadership. We run the African American Leadership Institute, which is a 10-week leadership development program.
What happens in this Leadership Institute?
Oh, well, in the Leadership Institute is an opportunity, I like to say, that's targeted towards mid-career emerging leaders who get the opportunity to learn about the content of what is happening in the African American community. So as far as thinking about what is the history of African Americans in Arizona, what do we understand about energy and water? What do we know about opportunities around boards and commissions? Transportation challenges such as the light rail, education. So it really is about understanding those issues and then being able to be a change agent within the fields or the sectors that they work in to make change and be leaders for our community.
Okay. All right, now, you're working on some education projects right now. Tell us about what you're working on.
Yes, absolutely. So the great thing is we are working on Essa, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act. And it is a federal mandate of how we educate that was signed into law in 2015. It really supports the replacement of the Education and Secondary Act, which was put in 1965. And it is an opportunity really for us to look at how we can be more equitable in the work that is provided to students of color, students who are English language learners, students who come from low income levels.
Okay, I think that Every Student Succeed is that replaced the No Child Left Behind?
Yes, so most people know it as No Child Left Behind. So the Education and Secondary Act is what it was formerly called, but it has been renamed
So Child
numerous.
Left Behind came from George W. Bush.
Exactly.
And Essa came from
Obama,
for President Obama.
Barack Obama. Okay. Correct.
Okay, and so talk to me about Essa. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more. So as a part of the National Urban League's Equity and Excellence Project, I had the opportunity, invited by the Urban Leagues, to come and go to a number of convenings back in October about education equity. And we really got an opportunity to learn more about Essa and the levers that really can allow our states to do better for students who look like me and students of color, students as well as English language learners, and as I said, students who live in low income areas. And so with that, the Greater Phoenix Urban League and the Tucson Urban League are working together in partnership to really make sure that the information gets out in our community. So through some partnerships with other organizations and hosting our own convening, we want to be able to share what Essa is. We want to be able to share the Arizona State Equity Report Card, which was done by the National Urban League, and we want to be able to share some equity indicators or equity principles that have been provided to us to help students, to help schools and for students. And then last, to really highlight any kind of community organizations, individuals, or schools who are already doing the work for the improvements in this plan.
Okay. You mentioned equity 3 or 4 times already, and some people equate equity with equality, and it's not the same.
It is not the same.
Talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I will. So when we talk about equity in the way that the National Urban League has defined it, is it's really removing the historical barriers. So our system was set up in a way in which it has not been equitable for us, specifically those subgroups that I talked about a number of times. So the goal is truly to look at principles that can help us. So an example, one of those principles where half of Black parents and 1 in 5 Latino parents do not believe that the U.S. schools do a good job in preparing Black and Latino students for success in the future, and that came from a national education majority poll. One of the principles of how we can solve that is our school system really has to prepare historically for underserved students, including students of color, low income, English language learners, students with disabilities, and post-secondary and college. So when you think about that, that's making sure that we are being mindful of who we have in our school system and being able to meet the needs of those students. And we need to do a better job of that. We know that in Arizona, the demographics of who is teaching our kids and who is in the system is very different. And so how do we prepare those teachers to be able to really meet the needs of who our children are and to truly understand, and I think in a state where there's a lot of poverty, that poverty is a distraction when it comes to that. So how do we become more equitable in understanding some of those system challenges that we have and social and economic challenges that affect our kids in schools?
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk some more about equity and education and so forth. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
I'm mildly obsessed with numbers. So I started with the stats regarding my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis.
Like how Humira has been prescribed to over 300,000 patients, and how many patients saw clear or almost clear skin in just 4 months, the kind of clearance that can last. Humira targets and blocks a specific source of inflammation that contributes to symptoms.
Numbers are great, and seeing clear skin, it's pretty awesome too.
That's what I call a body of proof.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Want more proof? Ask your dermatologist about Humira. This is my body of proof.
Cox Business and BNC National Bank are proud to announce the winner of the 2019 Small Business Boost Contest, Sibley's West. Sibley's West is a gift shop like no other, featuring only products made in Arizona. Art, books, children's gifts, clothing, gift baskets, and more. It's the best of Arizona right in downtown Chandler. Sibley's West will receive $5,000 in cash and an Arizona's Family free TV advertising schedule sponsored by Cox Business and BNC National Bank. Thank you to all who entered and voted.
I used to suffer from ED, but I wasn't about to let that stop me. So I called Peak Health. Their doctors actually correct the underlying causes of ED. No needles, no pain, no waiting for the pills to kick in. I wanted my love life back. With Peak Health, I got it. So stop living with ED. Call Peak Health. I'm glad I did. And I'm not the only one that's happy about it.
So what's the empty suitcase for?
The grand prize trophy. I was born to be somebody.
George Dean, President and CEO, Greater Phoenix Urban League, a leading provider of human services in the Valley. You're watching Urban Connections, and I'm talking this morning with Miss Teniqua Broughton, the Executive Director of the State of Black Arizona, and we're talking about equity and education and children of color and how they are not up to snuff, if you will, in terms of everything that's going on in our schools and so forth. You mentioned before we took the break about a principle that you shared one of the principles. What's another one of these principles that you?
Yeah, so I'll reference just the book that I have from the National Urban League with Unitas US as well as the Education Trust. There are 7 principles in here that really talk about how do we advance equity. And so with that, I'll point out the 5th one, which this says, black students represent 16% of public K-12 education, but 39% of out-of-school suspensions, and that came from the Civil Rights Data Collection.
That's nationwide.
That's nationwide, but in Arizona, black students represent 5% of public education enrollment, but 13% of out-of-school suspensions, and that was from the 2015-2016 school year reporting. So with the 5th principle, schools must be safe, nurturing environments that provide physical, emotional, and intellectual well-being of students inside and outside of school walls.
Okay, suspensions. I've heard stories of suspensions of 3- and 4-year-olds. What is how do you suspend a 3-year-old from doing what?
You know, I think,
besides being a 3-year-old.
I would say, Mr. Dean, we are all trying to figure that out. I do understand that there are different situations, but the question is, are they minor infractions? And many of them have been known to be minor infractions. However, that is defined by the school or the school district, whatever that incident is with the care provider or the teacher. And so with that, we really have to figure out what are we setting in place to say is truly an infraction for someone to be dismissed from school. And I think both of us read the Arizona Republic article earlier last month where a young boy was defending himself in school and got kicked out, but not only got suspended for defending himself from someone trying to fight him, but in looking at that particular story, he then lost all of his sort of curricular activities that he was playing in the band. And so that becomes challenging when you're thinking about, you don't want to equate it to race, but then you don't know why all these things keep compounding the amount of punishment for something in school around suspensions and expulsion.
And the fact that the suspension of the students of color is so much greater, that makes me believe that there maybe be some preconceived biases that's taking place because these kids are students of color.
We do, and I believe there are preconceived biases. I mean, we live in a world where we have to push diversity and inclusion in the space, and there are some that may not really understand why, but there's been a history of not having opportunities for us at the table. And so when you think about the child in the classroom, while there are other communities of color who are also getting suspended, ours is almost 3 times our percentage. So we do want to pay attention to why is that happening and how can we truly create some change to make sure that is. And I know that there are organizations such like the ACLU's Demand to Learn campaign. We have worked with them in really trying to find out what's the data behind that, and they're working with a number of school districts, I know, in the Phoenix metropolitan area around that and wanting to push out more. And then the Black Mothers Forum, who also is doing the work specifically around school district to do advocacy. So I know there are many others I did not mention, but I think there are solutions, and we have to do better as a collective, as a collective community to figure out how to get in front of our schools, our administrators, and our policymakers to do a better job at this issue.
What do you have any idea what the population I mean, the demographics as far as teachers are concerned? Are they mostly of color, or are they mostly not of color, or how does that go?
So the last report that I was looking at the Arizona Department of Education's inclusive practices report that they did, I think I remember the percentages being closely around mostly white and Caucasian teachers around that 80%. So that's a high level, whereas when you look at children of color, yes, I think the Latino Hispanic population is about 41% of that population, plus other communities. So with that, putting that together, that's a greater percent of margin towards who is teaching our kids.
Okay, and that bias come in, and a whole lot of things come in, stereotypes and all those other kind of things.
And it's where we are at this point in our country, in our world, and society. And the reality is we all have biases. We all have biases.
Absolutely.
And with that, we just have to work to remove that so that every child has the opportunity to succeed.
Okay. We're going to take another short break, and we're going to come back and wrap up this conversation. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Hello, I'm Dr. Tony. 1 in 6 men are at risk of prostate cancer, but it doesn't have to be that way. Introducing Prostate Plus, a revolutionary prostate product that includes things like saw palmetto, pumpkin seed, phytosterols, lycopene, pygeum, B6, quercetin, stinging nettle, D3, vitamin E, selenium, and so much more. You can find Prostate Plus at your local health food store or log on to the website radiantgreens.com. That's radiantgreens.com. I'm Dr. Tony for better health.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who wants to care of you.
The skills you can develop in the Army National Guard can give you an edge in the high-tech job market of tomorrow. The Guard offers career training to take advantage of your interests in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Gain practical experience with emerging technology and equipment that you can transfer to an exciting new field. Get a head start on your career while serving part-time and earning money to pay for college. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn about all of the STEM career opportunities available to you in the Army National Guard.
Arizona's family weather. Royal Norman, Arizona's weather authority.
George Dean, President, CEO, Greater Phoenix Urban League, a leading provider of human services in the Valley. You're watching Urban Connections. I'm talking with Ms. Teniqua Broughton, the Executive Director of the State of Black Arizona, and we have been talking about equity and education and suspensions of people of color, of students of color, I should say, in our school system, and how that greatly exceeds what we have. But Essa came about what year?
2015.
2015. So, and my understanding is every state in the country was supposed to come up with a plan to submit to the federal government and how every student was going to succeed in that school system. Is that not correct?
That is correct. So what I can share, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is through the Equity and Excellence Project through the National Urban League, 36 states plus the District of Columbia, they did assessments on those plans.
Okay.
And so Arizona was one of those states who they did assess, and that was a part of us going into the convenings back in October to really learn about what they actually assessed, and then understanding Arizona's report card.
Okay. So how did Arizona shape up?
So unfortunately, Arizona got a poor score.
Got a poor score.
Got a poor score. So there are about 8 states out of those 36 that got a poor score. And how that was reviewed was looking at 12 different indicators. And so I'll just share those equity indicators, goals and indications around school quality and student success, subgroup performance, which is about the size of the in-group, support and interventions for struggling schools is around underperforming schools goals and identifying sort of targets of improvement. Resources for equity, having the plan for inequities around per pupil expenditures, as well as the report card and other opportunities around advancement for secondary education and technical education opportunities. Educational equity, which is about teacher equity of ineffective teachers and lack of the opportunity for professional development out of the field, just being inexperienced. The sixth one is stakeholder engagement, how the community is engaged with the work and others. The seventh one is breaking the school to prison pipeline. We pretty much know that, the accountability of understanding how our kids succeed through the process. 8 is equitable access to early childhood learning, those opportunities that happen through Title II funds. 9 is equitable implementation of college and career standards. 10 is out of school time, 21st century learning. 11 is equitable access for higher quality curriculum. And then the 12th one is clear reporting and transparency data that are easy to understand. So out of those 12 indicators, we scored poor on 8 of them.
On 8 of those, wow. So we got some work to do, and that brings me to the point of asking, how can educators, community leaders, and parents get involved with these efforts and so forth?
Absolutely. So as I shared earlier, we're going to participate in a number of different gatherings and host our own gatherings as a partnership with the Greater Phoenix Urban League and the Tucson Urban League. And so actually on May 15th at 5:30 at South Mountain High School, there will be an Essa Town Hall on the unfairness treatment of Black students, actually hosted by the Arizona Informant. You can register at Eventbrite or call the Arizona Informant. This is an event on behalf of the partnership where I'll be focusing on the actual Essa plan and those indicators that affect Black students the most, with responses from our Superintendent of Instruction, Kathy Hoffman. So she and I will be presenting this together around the responses of how she and her team are working, as well as others.
Okay. Very good. Well, listen, we run out of time. That's what happens with TV, is you run out of time before when you really get talking about this. But I want to say, first of all, thank you for coming and sharing this information with us, and let all of the viewing audience know that you can become involved. In fact, whether you have a child in school or not, you still should be involved. Like I said, our destiny, the destiny of our future depends upon our children, so we got to make sure that they get educated correctly and so forth. I'm George Dean, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Urban League, and we'll talk with you next month on Urban Connections.
Thanks for letting us